What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and it's time for another datasheet deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking tanks, because the topic of the video is the Predator, the workhorse of the Space Marine tank company. As always with these datasheet deep dive videos, it helps so much if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, maybe comment down below, all that YouTube stuff, and let's dive into this vehicle. Now, normally in this series, we talk about a datasheet, maybe discuss its variants as well as detachments it works in. However, today is going to be slightly different because Predators are actually extremely widely distributed throughout the 40k universe. Many factions in the game can take some variation of Predators. So what we're going to be doing is talking about the main three archetypes of Predator battle tank, and then discuss their differences in different factions, as well as generally that you might want to look for when utilizing each of those Predator varieties. We're then going to do a little bit of a tier list on these three types of Predators and discuss which ones you should prioritize taking in your army. So with that, let's dive in and talk about the top line profile of the Predator battle tank. Predators are essentially the quintessential medium vehicle profile. They come in at a fairly resilient toughness of 10 with a 3+ save, kind of low wounds count at only 11 wounds, as well as kind of a mediocre leadership of 6 and 3 OC. Now, across all of the factions, there will be some war gear and even a couple statistical differences between the Predator varieties, but their turret-mounted weapon, sponson-mounted weapons, and special abilities are universally the same. In addition, all Predators have the smoke keyword. This gives them access to smoke screen from the core rulebook and can improve their survivability somewhat. We're going to start by talking about the Predator Destructor. This has the Destructor ability, which improves its armor penetration characteristic when making ranged attacks targeting infantry, and that is going to be the case for every single variety of that Predator Destructor. The Destructor is equipped with a Predator autocannon on its turret-mounted weapon. This is the case for every variety of Predator Destructor. It doesn't matter which faction you're taking in or which exact pattern of Predator you're taking. All the Destructor Predators has the same autocannon and the same ability. In addition, all Predators can take the same sponson-mounted weapons, although their pintle-mounted weapons are slightly different. This includes 2 heavy bolters or 2 las cannons. Generally speaking, you're going to be taking las cannons on these things. One thing that the Predator chassis has going for it is its incredible efficiency. That relatively mediocre top-line profile buys you a lot in terms of points value, and Predators tend to come in at an extremely affordable total. That means that regardless of the type of Predator you're taking, you can almost always use them as a battery for a turret weapon and 2 las cannons and get that fairly efficiently. Now, the Predator Destructor specifically is an interesting beast. This guy gets +1 AP against infantry, as I mentioned before, but this affects all of its weapons, not only its turret weapon and its sponson mounts, but also its pintle-mounted weapons too, giving it a bevy of pretty high AP shooting when targeting a lot of infantry varieties. This means it can essentially ignore cover when shooting at infantry, almost, because most of the time you are going to be getting cover in 10th edition 40k, and many times infantry are going to be on their base 3+ or 4+ save, which makes lots of anti-infantry weapons kind of inefficient against them, since you're not able to actually utilize your AP value. This Predator autocannon, however, comes in at a base AP of 1, improves to AP 2 when you're targeting infantry units, and even if that infantry unit is in cover, they're gonna be saving on worse than their base armor save. Otherwise, the Predator autocannon comes in at a 48-inch range with rapid fire 2 and 4 base attacks, meaning that out to 48 inches, it's attacking 4 times, within 24 inches, it's attacking 6. This is all at a 3+ ballistic skill, strength 9, AP 1 for 3 damage, and again, that AP improves to 2 when targeting infantry. If you want to make this thing a purpose-built infantry sweeper, you can also mount those heavy bolters on its sponsons, giving it a potential total of 12 attacks. The heavy bolters are the standard heavy bolter profile, 3 shots at 36 inches, at strength 5, AP 1 for 2 damage. Again, that can improve up to AP 2. However, most of the time you are going to be taking las cannons, strength 12, AP 3, D6 +1 damage attacks, that again improve to AP 4 against infantry and make it incredibly good at killing those heavy infantry. This makes this thing basically purpose-built to kill heavy infantry targets. Things like Terminators or Gravis Armored Space Marines just fall in the face of the Predator Destructor. Most of its weapons are wounding them on 3s or even 2s if it's taking las cannons. They're all going to be punching through most of the target's armor save unless it's protected by Armor of Contempt and potentially cover, and each converted attack, whether it's the Predator autocannon or a las cannon, has a very good chance of killing the target. Now, when playing a Predator Destructor, most often you're looking for ways to supplement the autocannon autocannon's relatively mediocre strength and AP characteristics. That AP1 is useful against infantry when you're using its destructor ability, but less good against super heavy targets, things like heavy vehicles and monsters that come in at higher base saves and that you don't get your destructor ability against. So being able to improve those strength and AP characteristics is important. In addition, lethal hits is also super good for this guy because he then doesn't have to roll to wound with his Predator autocannon. Again, when you're fighting against those other vehicles, things like enemy Predators, for example, he's winning on 5s. They're probably saving and his autocannon is not that useful. So if you can get those lethal hits through, you can actually out-volume the target's armor save and get 3 to 6 damage through relatively consistently. Now moving on to the second variety of Predator, that is the Predator Annihilator. This thing comes with the exact same top-line profile as well as most of the exact same weapon options, including identical pintle-mounted weapons. However, it trades its autocannon for the Predator Twin Las Cannon. This is a single attack at strength 14 AP3 for D6 plus 1 damage with the twin linked ability. So it's only firing one time, but it can reroll its wound roll. Unfortunately for the Predator Annihilator, that single attack only has the same damage characteristic as a standard las cannon, doing D6 plus 1. However, this is buffed by the Annihilator ability. This gives you reroll damage rolls of 1 against monsters or vehicles. Like the Predator Destructor, this affects all of the Annihilator's weapons, so if you can source additional D6 damage weapons, like las cannons or hunter-killer missiles, for example, it will also apply to those, and smooth over its damage track slightly. This makes the Predator Annihilator much more ranged focus. It doesn't have that necessity to get within 24 inches of its target to make the most use out of its top gun, so these guys are able to hang back towards the back of the fight and plink at heavy targets all game. The downside is a low attack volume, unlike the Predator Destructor, which can make use of effects like lethal hits or improved AP to punch its way just through sheer weight of attacks through heavy targets. It's hoping that it does convert that twin las cannon. So this guy is especially looking for effects like hit rerolls or floating rerolls, Master Artisan style rerolls like the Iron Storm Spearhead in the Space Marine faction grants it, in order to ensure that it gets its hit with its twin las cannon. Once it does, it has rerolls at all other stages of the attack sequence. It's rerolling its wounds with twin linked and potentially its damage with the Annihilator ability, making it fairly consistent at converting, assuming you can get through the target's armor or invulnerable saves. Now last but certainly not least for the Predator varieties is going to be kind of the odd man out of this vehicle chassis. You might be surprised when I say that there are 3 varieties of Predator, and that's because the last one is only available to a single Space Marine chapter. This is the Blood Angels Baal Predator. This guy comes in with overcharged engines that not only improve its movement characteristic from 10 up to 12, but also give it the overcharged engines ability, which allow it to reroll advance rolls. Now, most of the time you won't be advancing these things around the table unless you have access to assault weapons sometimes, and the Baal Predator does by just having assault weapons. All of its sponson and turret mounted weapons are assaults. There's no special ability applied to this, they just have the keyword, so you can advance and shoot them. It's important to note, however, that while the Baal Predator can mount Stormbolters and hunter-killer missiles, those are not assault weapons. Previous versions of the Predator could gain assault when targeting specific enemy unit types. That's not the case for the most current version, which is coming in out of the new and as yet unofficially released, I think, outside of the pre-release boxed set Blood Angels supplement. This makes the Baal Predator ridiculously fast, but close range oriented. It does have slightly different sponson mounts, swapping out the ability to take las cannons for heavy flamers, but it can still take those heavy bolters if it wants to. And its turret weapon can either be a Flamestorm Cannon, a D6 plus 3 strength 6 AP2 2 damage ignoring cover torrent, essentially a longer range version of one of the Flamestorm cannons from a Land Raider Redeemer, or a twin assault cannon, 6 shots at strength 6, AP0 for 1 damage, but with the devastating wound and twin linked effects. Now, the Baal Flamestorm Cannon is far and away the superior choice here in most situations. The twin assault cannon is cute. It is able to fire into most unit types and get a couple devastating wounds, thanks to fishing for those devastating wounds with twin linked. However, only attacking 6 times means it's only inflicting a maximum of 6 damage, which represents the conversion of probably only a half of the Baal Flamestorm Cannon's total number of automatic hits that it's generating. The Flamestorm Cannon, especially alongside heavy flamers, makes the Baal Predator a ridiculously dangerous Overwatch threat as well. It's able to represent 2d6 auto-hitting 1 damage weapons, as well as d6 plus 3 2 damage auto hits. This combination makes it incredibly good at torching infantry squads, and then following it up and torching the second infantry squad in the row. While we don't know the final points cost for this unit, so it's hard to compare them in cost effectiveness to the other varieties of Predator, this makes this thing incredibly good at clearing infantry, especially light utility units, or even close combat focused infantry will fall to the massed flamers of the Predator. That makes it much more one-dimensional. It is built essentially for only a single purpose, but it's extremely good at completing that mission. And generally speaking in 40k, units that are built specifically to do one thing tend to be more effective than units that are a little bit more jack of all trades. Now, like other Space Marine Predators, the Baal Predator can equip a Hunter-Killer Missile or a Stormbolter, as I mentioned before, and that is the case for all other varieties of Space Marine Predator. But now is the time that we talk about different factions taking Predators, because all Chaos Space Marine subfactions also get access to the Destructor or the Annihilator, and each one of them brings its own unique flair. While their main weapons and abilities are identical, they each bring some unique support for the Predator, as well as some different top-mounted weapons. Now, all Chaos Predators trade the ability to take a Hunter-Killer Missile for a Havoc Launcher, a D6-shot Strength 5 blast weapon. The Havoc Launcher fires out to 48 inches, and being okay at plinking damage off of infantry squads makes it a pretty reasonable alternative to the more dedicated anti-tank weapon that Space Marine Predators can equip. Interestingly, Chaos Space Marine Predators can also swap out the Stormbolter on their pintle mount for a combi weapon. They're able to take a combi bolter, which is the Chaos equivalent of a Stormbolter, or an actual combi weapon, which is anti-infantry with devastating wounds. Oftentimes, this devastating wound weapon is pretty nice because it gives you the opportunity to plink a mortal wound into your target. Like the main weapons on the Predator Destructor, the Havoc Launcher is also pretty good when you're affecting it with AP buffs or lethal hits. And Chaos Space Marines, especially the standard Chaos Space Marine faction, can get access to lethal hits from their Dark Pact faction ability. That makes Predator Destructors, specifically in Chaos Space Marines, incredibly effective since they are always able to get access to that lethal hits that makes their autocannons so efficient. But the same can also be said for las cannon mounted Predators, which are able to get sustained hits from Dark Pact as well. In contrast to their loyalist counterparts, most Chaos Space Marine Predators also kind of inexplicably gain an additional point of OC. They go from OC3 to OC4, and this is almost universally across the board for all varieties of Chaos Predator. Other varieties of Chaos Space Marine also have unique buffs for Predators. Thousand Suns, for example, have unique weapons, including swapping their bolt weapons for Inferno bolt weapons. That makes their heavy bolters AP2 instead of AP1, and that improves them to AP3 when targeting infantry units, which can be very lethal. They also get an Inferno combi bolter on the top instead of the standard combi bolter, which puts them to AP1. These are minor buffs, but pretty nice, especially when combined with the fact that Thousand Suns can buff their Predators using Kabbalistic rituals. Despite the fact that the Predator does not actually get the Kabbalistic ritual ability, you can always target Thousand Suns units with your own rituals, allowing you to double move these Predators or even improve their AP even farther by Twist of Fating their target. That can improve if Predator Destructors, Heavy Bolters, or Autocannon up to the dizzying heights of AP4, which is pretty interesting. On top of that, Death Guard can also do a similar thing, using contagions to reduce the toughness characteristic of their targets, as well as improve the AP of their own Predators. This makes both Death Guard and Thousand Suns fairly interesting homes for especially the Predator Destructor, since those AP buffs go the farthest on those autocannon profiles. Now, just like the Thousand Suns Predator gets an Inferno combi bolter improving its AP value, the Death Guard Predator also gets a slight bonus in that its combi weapons are plague weapons. This gives their pintle mounted combi bolter and sponson mounted heavy bolters lethal hits. Not a huge deal in the grand scheme of things, but kind of a nice additional bonus. World Eaters are the other faction that gets access to the Predator. Now, I mentioned that the other varieties of Chaos Predator have some statistical improvements over the base version, and the World Eaters one kind of has the opposite. It is, in fact, OC3 like Loyalist Predators, not OC4 like other Chaos Predators. I don't know why. It's just worse than the other Chaos ones. They can improve their speed and survivability with Blessings of Khorne, and even give them rerolls from Angron, but otherwise have really no other synergies with Predators. Oftentimes, if you see World Eaters taking ranged units, they're taking things like Forge Fiends, or even combined arms units like Lords of Skulls that are both able to apply damage at range and also use the faction's incredible buffs in melee. So this is probably the least likely place that you're going to be seeing Predators. That makes Predators a pretty unique unique unit in that while they have basically the same abilities across the game, they're played in very different capacities in different factions. So let's go ahead and do a quick tier list of Predators from the strongest and most versatile to the least. I'm going to start by putting the Predator Destructor in the #1 spot. This guy is just able to apply a ton of pretty high damage attacks for an extremely efficient cost. And when you're talking about a medium battle tank that is essentially a gun carriage, this is the thing that you're most likely looking for, especially if you are able to source effects like lethal hits or AP bonuses or even wound rerolls or strength bonuses. The Predator Destructor starts to hit well above its weight class and starts to look very good in comparison to other battle tanks. I'm going to put the Baal Predator in the next spot here. This guy is incredibly strong. However, he is, as I mentioned before, basically purpose-built to kill only infantry and almost nothing else. While he does act as an incredibly effective anti-infantry tool and an Overwatch threat, he isn't really doing damage to heavy vehicles, at least that much. The Flamestorm Cannon can certainly do something, but it's not going to one-tap another vehicle. Oftentimes you see games come down to the point where you have Baal Predators versus your opponent's heavier targets, and they really fall down pretty hard in those situations. That said, those Flamestorm Cannons and the fact that they are extremely consistent with Torrent and have an extremely long threat range does make the Baal Predator good at alpha striking enemies and still effective against a wide variety of targets, which is why I'm going to put it in the second spot here. The Predator Annihilator is unfortunately a bit of the redheaded stepchild of the trio. Its incredibly low attack volume and focus on one-shot D6 damage weapons make it super unreliable. I find it a little bit odd that the Annihilator ability only affects its damage rolls, but doesn't do anything else to help it get its weapons to that damage point. And unlike the Predator Destructor, this ability only affects its las cannon weapons. So you're really incentivized to take the las cannon sponsons on it, and you can't really build it any other way because its special ability doesn't affect things like heavy bolters. They don't roll damage at all. If this was like reroll ones to hit and wound against vehicles, I think you would maybe see it more often as a very efficient independent range platform, but the fact that it kind of needs help in order to get its gunshots off and really only buffs itself once converting its attacks and when you're already dealing damage makes it a tough sell. Especially in Space Marines proper, it is butting heads directly against the Gladiator Lancer, which essentially has an identical weapon profile but is just almost strictly better. Instead of firing what is essentially 3.5 las cannon shots between its two sponson las cannons as well as its one twin-linked top-mounted las cannon that's a higher strength, you're firing fewer attacks, but you get those floating rerolls baked in thanks to Aquiline Optics, and you're even doing it at the same strength but a higher AP and higher damage as well. The comparison to the Lancer is particularly damning, but the Annihilator is cheaper, and if you're playing something like Ironstorm Spearhead and you already have access to that floating reroll, Annihilators can be more efficient from a cost per hull standpoint. But if you agree with this tier list, go ahead and let me know down in the comments section. Let me know as well which Predator is your favorite, and thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Thanks as well to everybody who supports the channel either over on Patreon at patreon.com/TacticalTortoise, YouTube channel members, and Twitch subscribers. All you people are amazing, and I love you. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.